Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris with me, Sharaad, Kuttan, and we're speaking tonight to Associate Professor Dr. Hamidin Hamid from Universiti Malaya, talking about the Bersatu Party. Now, just before the break, you talked about how it's important for the party to show, have a show of unity, especially in this top post, because it will, I guess, reflect better in its position in the coalition. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned factionalism before the break. We see that happening in other parties, particularly PKR. Is Bersatu also a victim to factionalism, as in all political parties, as an observer?
Yeah, I think as an observer, I think no party will manage to get away from that, especially in Malaysia. Why? When I discuss it, I like to see from bigger picture of Malaysian politics. First, we are strongly two elements that dominated that. One is client-patrons relationship. That is always there in any political party. That's kind of very much strong values, tradition within a relation. Second, dependency. I think these two. I think you can see that element in any party in Malaysia, and Bersatu also. I think will face that. The problem with the Bersatu is this. It's not the problem so much, it's challenge. As I said just now, first is young, second they are in power. So if they are in the opposition, I don't think the spotlight will be that strong on them. But now, because they are in power, furthermore, who's going to replace Mahathir in the bigger picture of Malaysian politics? And then, for example, today, I think 2 days ago, Mahathir mentioned that who are going to be the new education minister. He said that that's post for Bersatu. That will give kind of another elements. Okay.
Right, so there'll be intense competition because it's not just for party positions, but also government positions.
I think that's why the challenge for the Bersatu, as I said, as 3 years old party and suddenly
in power.
It's not, for me, they're still struggling on the ground structurally, but at the same time holding power. I think that is something.
So it might have a distorting effect. I want to ask you whether this idea of allowing defectors, post the election, to come into the party and now also contest post, this would be resented by those members who actually in many ways took a risk by leaving UMNO before the elections, now seeing those who stood by Najib Razak now being rewarded with both entry into the party but also the possibility of taking up posts. Will this, do you think, play out in the elections? Where do you see this happening?
It is. From our observations on what's happening on the ground, I think that's one of the biggest talking point, basically among the Bersatu, especially as you say, people who take the risk prior to the last election, and suddenly, as you said just now, the benefactor of the old party move in and go for that. I think this is big challenge for Bersatu, and this is where, in my opinion, what they must not only look from within the party. I think some of the problem faced by the political party in Malaysia, when they look very much from the angle of the party survival, they have to look, in my point of view, into wider context. How does the people, the voters, look of what's happening in Bersatu? In my point of view, if they allow and very much give a place for some of the defector to come in and holding senior posts after that, I think that will give not a very good light to the voters. Meaning, this is where, in my point of view, branding in politics suddenly plays role.
Mahathir is a shrewd operator. He must know the issue of the messaging that comes from this kind of strategy, but he also recognizes the need to build the party fast, right? The party, there is an urgency for the party to strengthen itself. And weakening UMNO must be part of its own strategy. So how do they have this balance? Is he achieving it?
I think this is from our looking at the experience. For example, when we analysed the PH government, not just only Bersatu, we said that one of the biggest mistakes of the PH government where they didn't really utilise the government agencies for the benefit of the government. What we're saying just now is not about the party, but about the policy, for example. Meaning they are on their side, where agency must explain more about policy rather than about party. Even that is missing. And that, in my point of view, also face problem by the Bersatu. Look at the Tanjung Piai election, for example, in the last election in Tanjung Piai. I think the failure of that is where, while federal is by the PH, state is by the Bersatu, but you can see nothing move on the ground. Meaning the failure for them to take the advantage of being the rulers, being the party, dominant party, to have that benefit, I think is a very much still learning curve for them.
Well,
in term
so
of that.
why is that? I mean, we have already, Dr. Mahathir is not his first time in office, so he would know how to play the game.
I think yes, definitely, Melisa. But when we look at the politics, it's not. I always say this: you can talk about policy, but at the end of the day, it's service delivery that matters on the ground. So you have to build. This is where Bersatu challenge. You can have the national leaders, but who's the people on the ground that being accepted by the people? That is, UMNO's strength, for example, even the weaknesses of leadership in the central leadership is there, but you can see on the ground they're still intact because why? Leaderships on the ground does matter.
But also because the party is so small, they lack grassroots support and the party machinery, right? So rather than, and perhaps that's where the coalition comes in. Where do you think Bersatu, in all reality, in all honesty, how is Bersatu's weight within this coalition, in your opinion?
I think currently they basically, in my point of view, riding on what's happened in the niche area of who's going to be the leaders prior to the last election. They managed that.
They're still riding on that?
They're still riding on that to some extent. But I think the biggest challenge for them for the future is structurally, even I always emphasize on this, structurally, where are they in the PH? It's not only just on leadership, meaning they have to build a good structure, and that structure must include them, even though how small they are, but the good structure of the PH must include them. So at least they have some good foundations that they belong to PH, rather than depend on the leadership, and as happening now.
I want to ask you this. I mean, there's been very little talk about Mahathir moving out of the picture for Bersatu. They seem to emphasize the fact that the man's very energetic and that he seems to work harder than everybody else. But it seems behind that is a denial that the man is also, I mean, whether he's 94 or whatever his age is, that in some ways they have to think about succession. Are they really grappling with this? Do you think they can imagine a time when Dr. Mahathir is no longer there in the picture?
Yeah. When we talk to some friends in Bersatu and even in the party, I say this is the biggest challenge of Bersatu to some extent faced by PKR. For example, how you want to resist as PKR with Anwar Ibrahim, and so too with Mahathir in that sense. This is where I said just now, Sharaad, I believe this is a good opportunity for Bersatu to establish a new structure that can create a good pipeline of leadership that they can see, make it clear to the people who's next after Mahathir, who's next after the person that reflects Mahathir. So preparing that, I think that should be communicated early to the people. Yes, some definitely will resist, go to the nostalgic. Malaysia is very romantic in term of that. So, but I think that you're talking about future. You're talking that you need to get support of the future, not of the past. I think that is something that they really have to think about that.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back right here on Consider This. Don't go anywhere.